Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Focus TV. Oh, man, we got a lot going on tonight. I mean, so much. I'm in studio by myself tonight. We do got Rodney and Raymond in the back, though. Octavia's not with us this evening. And Cardell, as always, you know, you guys always hear somebody's in the gym somewhere. Tonight, that is exactly the case. We're going to talk to him in just a bit. But on tonight's show, we're touch on some local college basketball. NFC East, I'm going to do my best. I know I'm not Octavia. I'm going to do my best to get through that. Got a couple of updates from DC United. And, of course, no show's complete without the 9-4-50 breakdown. And we got a little bit of rapid fire. We'll have Raymond come in a little bit later as we, you know, I'll play Cardell on that. I'm taking on many roles tonight. I ask some questions to get through that part. But as we get started tonight, we're going to start with Cardell Dudley. Cardell, right now, as you guys can hear in the background, is in the gym. GW's taking on Minnesota. So, Cardell, first, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. Wish I could take it to GW right now.
All right, I know they faced a Big Ten opponent earlier this year in Maryland. How are things? It sounds like things aren't going that well against Minnesota.
Right now, they're currently down 57-22 with about halfway through the third quarter. Minnesota just kind of blitzed them in the second quarter. They trapped them and caused a lot of turnovers, and it just took GW out of their flow. In the first half alone, they had 15 turnovers to Colonial. That's not going to get it done. And they came in averaging 19, which is high. But if you dang near double that in the first half, that tells the whole story right there. Soda also had 10 assists to 1 in the first half.
Oh, wow.
And 10 steals to 1 in the first half. Both came in shooting well from three-point range and defending the three. Both were pretty much equal in both areas as far as three-point shooting. But at the half, Minnesota was shooting 50% and held GW to 20%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they went on a 26-9 run in the second quarter, which blew the game open. That's why it's such a huge deficit. Before that, GW was hanging tough until they started trapping us. And that was the game. That was the adjustment. Very sure freshman Tori Hyde, keep an eye on her. She matures. She's one of the best shooters in the A-10. She had 9 points at the half. Sophomore center, Tyler Walker, had 7 points and 5 rebounds. But Minnesota got some talented freshmen, man. You're going to see them later when they play Maryland. Sarah Scalia, he takes the Gophers with 11 points and 4 rebounds, while very sure Julia Godiva Hubbard posted 10 points in the first half.
All right, yeah, I know one of the things I got from Minnesota last year under Lindsey was just the fact of how hard they play defense.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And the thing is, they're beating GW with their young guards. You know what I'm saying? And that's the shocking part. Their best player hasn't even, she hasn't really went off. And that's Karina Bello, you know what I'm saying? So she's actually just playing defense and rebounding the ball, and the perimeter guards do their thing. And it's getting ugly. I'm just going, there's no other way of putting it. They just overwhelmed offensively because of Minnesota's defense. And that's a testament to Lindsey Whalen. That's her pedigree. All the way back to, not just college, but with the link. So it's on her. It's on to kind of pick up her identity as far as basketball. And it's a sight to behold.
All right, I guess what's the biggest thing that stood out to you from, either team in this matchup?
Say that again?
I guess what's the biggest thing that, your biggest takeaway from this matchup for each team?
My bad, man. The band loud.
No, it's all good. It's part of being in the field. It's not a problem. All right, what I was saying was, what's your biggest takeaway from each team after, as this game? Yeah, the biggest takeaway from each team.
Same thing we kind of saw when they played Maryland. The athleticism, not just from all around, they can't match that. And even when they kind of break the trap, they don't really get away. And Minnesota come from behind and knock the ball loose, and then they out running for easy points in transition. And the physicality, I know GW's missing a lot of key players up front, but regardless, somebody has to step up, and you don't really see that. The physicality from Minnesota, the athleticism, they just can't match it to try to, mount a comeback. And shout out to the Misses here, the Misses coaching staff here, scouting both teams like they always do.
As always, and that's the other thing I don't think people get, not to sidebar too much. they stay on the grind. That's one of the reasons that they're able to build what they built over this last 6 years. They're always in the gym somewhere scouting.
Exactly.
At all times. But man, I want to thank you for calling in tonight. You go ahead and enjoy the rest of your night. And, we'll definitely see Minnesota later this year in the Big Ten. And we'll get at you next week.
For sure.
All right, everybody. Want to thank Cardell Dudley for calling in tonight. Man, I definitely enjoyed watching Lindsey Whalen and company last year. I definitely expect that program to continue to get better and better. And, with GW, is one of those things. There's a lot of young players over there, but there's not really an excuse despite the youth. The good thing is in your conference, you don't necessarily have to deal with the exact same caliber athletes, but the A-10 is still real. Cardell has reminded me several times. Well, I've learned that through the years from his constant reminders. So that is another thing to take away. But as far as the rest of the college basketball segment goes, we're going to go ahead and get started with the GW men's. The Colonials took down the Delaware Blue Hens 66-56, ending the Blue Hens' school record 9-game win streak. Amel Potter put on a show in the second half, scoring 16 of his game-high 19 points to lead GW to the biggest win in the Christian era. Arnaldo Taro, who Cardell talks about quite a bit, 12 points, 17 rebounds, 3 blocks, handling his business inside Maceo Jack, 11 points and 5 boards. Head to finestmag.com to check out the full recap and just to keep up with GW, both men's and women's in general. As far as the women's go, prior to tonight's matchup, redshirt freshman guard Tori Hajduk, as Cardell mentioned earlier, she posted a game-high 22 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists to lead GW to a 78-67 win over Quinnipiac last week. Mayowa Taiwo added 12 points and 11 rebounds on 5 of 8 shooting, and Alexandra Mond finished with 14 points and 5 rebounds to help pace GW. Point guard Shaq Edwards scored 18 points to lead Quinnipiac. As for the Terps, your Maryland women had a very busy week. As we told you guys last week, they were heading to North Carolina State to take on the Wolfpack. They did stumble. North Carolina State beat Maryland 66-59. The 13th ranked Wolfpack used a big third quarter, 18-9, to take control of the game. The other we've discussed here several times, me talking about Maryland with rebounding being concerned, just with the type of defense they're playing this year. That's an area in which NC State dominated them. 51-27 on the glass, despite Maryland forcing 20-plus North Carolina State turnovers. It was just a little bit too much to overcome. Taylor Mikesell led the Terps with 13 points. Blair Watson had 12, and Ashley Owusu, the freshman point guard, had 10 points and 9 assists. Kai Crutchfield led the Wolfpack with 19 points, while Elisa Kunane, I hope I didn't butcher your name, had a monster double-double with 16 points and 15 rebounds. The Terps responded from Thursday's loss with a 105-45 win over Loyola. Yes, I said that correctly. Want to make sure you heard me correctly as well. 105-45. Shakira Austin bounced back game for her. 25 points, 13 boards to lead the way for Maryland. We're going to slide over to the Capital City Go-Go because, we haven't talked about them, I think, maybe in 2 weeks. We've kind of directed you guys to head over to both finestmag.com and mymonosports.com for Go-Go coverage. And shout out to Raymond Lyons, who's done a great job getting out there when Cardell and I are not able to cover the games. So that's a name you need to get familiar with as you go to both sites. The Greensboro Swarm and the Capital City Go-Go had a 2-game series, essentially, that started Friday, November 29th. But the Swarm won that contest 108-94. The Go-Go shook off the cobwebs from that loss to the Swarm and secured a 123-117 victory the following Sunday evening. So literally 48 hours apart, those two teams met. Capital City then dropped a nail-biter to the Lakeland Magic, 107-106, at home on December 3rd. On the 6th, they fell to Delaware, 110-109, two extremely close losses back-to-back for Capital City. The Go-Go did return to the comfort of the entertainment and sports arena after dropping the nail-biter against Delaware. Capital City continued their hot shooting and defended the three-point line very well, holding the Chargers to just 28% shooting from deep en route to a 113-108 victory on Saturday night. Both teams came in attack mode in a game that ultimately saw 17 lead changes, and it was tied 12 times. It was a tightly contested battle, but the Go-Go got key stops down the stretch and converted on the offensive end to come away with the victory. Up next, the Go-Go will hit the road to take on the College Park Skyhawks and the Lakeland Magic. We're going to go ahead and head into our first break. When we get back, man, there's a lot to discuss still. We still got the NFC East. I'm going to try to do my best and not be petty while talking about this very dismal division. It irks my nerves that whoever wins this division is literally what's the best way to say it? They're going to host a double-digit win team, which is ridiculous when you think about it because everybody's under 500 here. And at very best, I don't think anyone can finish above 500. But you're watching the Focus TV. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Focus TV. Octavia is not here, as mentioned at the start of the show. Again, I will do my very best to get through. It's hard to read through this division, guys. And I'd also like to, throw out a disclaimer here. I dislike every team in this division equally. So keeping that in mind, I don't have not a single horse in this race. I also don't even really want to discuss this division at all. With that said, let's begin. We're going to start on Thursday night with the Dallas Cowboys. Fell to the Chicago Bears, 31-24. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys fell to Mitch Trubisky. Both teams made the playoffs last year, but both have really hit adversity this year. It was Chicago's fourth win in the last 5 games as they try to keep their playoff hopes alive in the NFC North. And the Cowboys have now dropped 7 of their last 10 games after starting the year 3-0. About Mitchell Trubisky, who's been the butt of many, many jokes since being drafted by Chicago. This year, again, still been laughed at several times. Despite that, Mitchell had a solid day. He shook off an early interception near the goal line to complete 23 of 31 passes for 244 yards. Dak Prescott, 27 of 49. Again, 49 attempts for a team that does have Ezekiel Elliott. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. But for 334 yards and a touchdown, speaking of Ezekiel Elliott, he ran for 81 yards. It's his 5th consecutive game under 100 yards. And he also had 2 scores. Michael Gallup had 109 yards receiving. Amari Cooper caught 6 passes for 83 yards and a touchdown. Again, with Dallas for a team with so much talent, they've really struggled to find any semblance of consistency, especially on the offensive end. There's no reason that a team should be struggling to get things to work or kind of not have an identity or always end up in these situations where there's a lot of yards that they get late in games and you kind of wonder where was the approach to start the game. Several times this year, I know talking with my cousin a lot, I guess I could say former Cowboys fan now, they kind of pushed them to the brink of no return. It's just the fact that they don't seem like they have any direction on that side of the ball. And it's just maddening when you think about the talent again. But it was a big game for them to drop. Despite that, I think they still remain atop the NFC East. On to the Redskins. They hit the road on Sunday to take on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers would win 20-15. Aaron Jones rushed for a season-high 134 yards and a touchdown on just 16 carries. Aaron Rodgers threw for 195 yards and 1 score. But for the Packers, again, like the Cowboys to a degree, they've been kind of going through it offensively, but they still have 10 wins. It hasn't been the end of the world. It's not to the level of ineptitude the Cowboys have been in have had on the offensive side of the ball this year. Dwayne Haskins completed 16 of 27 passes for 170 yards. He had 1 touchdown and an interception. Adrian Peterson became the 6th back in NFL history to reach the 14,000-yard mark. So congratulations to Adrian Peterson. He had 76 yards and a score in this one. Man, last night I tried to watch it. It was definitely hard to get through. But, you know, the Eagles and Giants, somebody had to win. Feels like Dallas is trying to give away the division to the Eagles, and they're kind of like, no, after you. But the New York Giants, get this, with Eli Manning filling in for the injured Daniel Jones, they took a 17-3 lead in this one at the half. Eli had 2 first-half touchdown passes to Darius Slayton, who ate last night, at least in the first half. Eli finished 15 of 30 for 203 yards. The Eagles were far more desperate in the second half, going for it several times. They're trying to get their way. Again, they still have a chance to win this division, as crazy as it sounds, because it's the NFC East, and nobody likes doing things easy in this division or getting things done early. No one believes in that. Every single year, no matter what goes on, just variables change, players change. Sometimes players change. But the same thing remains. It's always interesting. I mean, down until the final bell, this division, the winner never pops up until the very, very end. But again, the Eagles, as desperate as they were, they did find some success. Boston Scott really stepped up for them last night. 59 yards on the ground, 69 yards receiving. And every one of those yards was very important because the Eagles, we've heard Octavia talk about this for several weeks, they've really struggled on the offensive end, especially with their to find consistent playmakers. And the established playmakers, due to health reasons, just haven't been there. And their lack of depth really after that, a lot of unproven players, and then at times players that have shown you something in the past that they haven't seized this opportunity at all. But again, big night for Boston Scott stepping up. And Carson Wentz went to old reliable Zach Ertz for not only the winning touchdown overtime, but the touchdown to tie things up at 17 at the end of regulation. Carson threw for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns, both scores going to Zach Ertz. The Eagles lost Alshon Jeffrey and Lane Johnson last night to injury. I believe Alshon Jeffrey looks to be out for the season. With Lane Johnson, it's kind of still in the air. The Eagles 6-7. They're 6-7 now. They snapped a 3-game losing streak, and they moved into a tie with Dallas for first place in NFC East. Philadelphia takes the division title if it wins its final 3 games. The Eagles meet the Cowboys in Week 16. So, again, it's going to go down to the end. But it's not just the NFC East as much as we're bagging on them. There's a couple divisions. NFC West going to go down to the wire. Also, a couple divisions in AFC as well. Only, Baltimore is clear. But outside of that, it's going to be interesting to see how the seeding plays out because the schedule makers, they did a solid job of really really spacing out the division games. There are a lot of teams that have a lot of things on the line in Week 16 and Week 17. All right, so the 9-4-50 breakdown this week, Jamal Hayward is demoing how to transition from a downhill move into a back down or post up. Again, it's how to transition from a downhill move into a back down or post up. But a lot of elite wings use this. Jamal's going to share a couple names, and a lot of bigger guards going from full speed straight into a post up, taking advantage of the situation before a defense can react. So again, shout out to Jamal Hayward. We're going to give the floor to him. Going to take our second break, and when we get back, we still got DC United, still got rapid fire. See you guys on the other side of the break.
Today we're going to work on breakdowns of transitioning from a downhill move into a back down. This is useful for big guards, wings that are able to put the ball on the floor as well as play with their back to the basket. You may see Russell Westbrook do this, Kevin Durant's good at it, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, etc., etc. So right now I'm just going to start with the dribble down. So I'm using my left hand. So I'm dribbling down right now. I can use my left hand. I can change to my right hand going between. or behind. Since you have a defender here, it's not smart to change with a crossover. So I'm changing direction here between right into a backhand. So a lot of times when Russell Westbrook plays, he's 6'4", he's coming against a smaller guard, say Chris Paul, right to the backhand. Here, he can turn middle, shot. He can backhand, turn baseline, shot. You got options. Same thing on that side. Here, back down. Again, turn middle, back down. Turn baseline, doesn't matter. Now, you can set it up with combo moves as well also. So I could be here, right until back down. Here. Today we're gonna work on breakdowns of transitioning from a downhill move into a back down. This is useful for big guards, wings that are able to put the ball on the floor as well as play with their back to the basket. You may see Russell Westbrook do this, Kevin Durant's good at it, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, etc., etc. So right now I'm just gonna start with the dribble down. So I'm using my left hand. So I'm dribbling down right now. I can use my left hand. I can change to my right hand going between or behind. Since you have a defender here, it's not smart to change with a crossover. So I'm changing direction here between right into a backhand. So a lot of times when Russell Westbrook plays, he's 6'4", he's coming against a smaller guard, say Chris Paul, right to the backhand. Here, he can turn middle, shot. He can backhand, turn baseline, shot. You got options. Same thing on that side. Here, back down. Again, turn middle, back down. Turn baseline, doesn't matter. Now, you can set it up with combo moves as well also. So I could be here, right until back down. Here.
Welcome back to the Focus TV. I got Raymond Lyons joining us. I told you guys earlier Ray was going to join us. Oh man, looking forward next week. We got all hands on deck next week. You know, we playing down a couple men and women. You know, we're going to do our best to get through the rest of this one though. All right, DC United. Man, the MLS season happens so quick. It ends late in the year, and literally 2 months later, about to be right back at it. Mm-hmm. But some important news. DC United have acquired goalkeeper Billy on permanent transfer from Danish top-tier side FC Maitland on a new 3-year deal using targeted allocation money, aka TAM. Last year, the goalie he came back to DC United last year on a year and a half loan, and you know They truly needed him. Bill led the league in shutouts with 14. Save percentage, 77.3. And he played more than 20 matches last year, and that save percentage is crazy when you take that into consideration. Hamid was also third in saves total, 126. It was nominated 4 times the MLS Team of the Week. The 29-year-old recorded 12 saves in the 0-0 draw against Toronto FC. And in 2019, he broke his single-game save record since he's been here, and he's literally DC United's first homegrown player. So shout out to them for keeping him. As well, congrats to defender Frederick Briant, 2-year contract extension for him. 2019, he had a career high in appearances, 34, minutes, 2,961. He had 2 goals this year, 2 assists, and he was one of only 18 players in the league to appear in every MLS regular season match. Shout out to durability. 6'3" defender, led the entire league in blocks, 34, and clearances at 210, while being second only to his fellow black and red defender, Steven Birnbaum. So, congrats in hands of both players. DC United still has a lot of folks interested to see what they do as far as restructuring this roster, due to Luciano Acosta is no longer here. I think everybody knows that. And we're going to see how things go. All right, so we're going to have kind of like an extended version of Rapid Fire today. So we're just going to chop it up. We're going to try to get through this. This is where we're at today. Also, you guys, anybody watching now, you on Twitter or whatever, chime in with some topics, man. We'll go ahead and get through it. But we're going to start off with what Cardell sent us to begin with. Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. You already know where we're going with this.
Hoodie Bill.
In wake of the NFL investigation into a videographer who was caught taping the Cincinnati Bengals sideline during Sunday's game. The Patriots denied involvement in the filming. Quote, "We're competitive and we'll try to be competitive in every area, but we don't knowingly, intentionally want to do anything that's across the line," end quotes. From your New England Patriots. Thoughts?
I'm not a Patriots fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I love Bill. Like, I love how he carries this. He's a modern day mobster. Like, they've clearly done something wrong here, and he's basically just saying, punish me if you can, but I don't think you're gonna be able to. Like, he attributed the mishap to the film crew being independent contractors, which is brilliant, by the way, because of course they don't know the ins and outs of the NFL rules and regulations and policies. So he's basically throwing it on them and saying, hey, you know what, this is not in our camp. We hired some guys to do some extra work for us. They came in, they didn't really know what was going on, and by happenstance they happened to break some rules that we've been found guilty of breaking before, by the way. But that's neither here nor there. But I mean, it's first things first. It's the Bengals. They're going to beat them anyway. So that's where I'm at with it. Bill's basically just challenging them to do something about this. And really, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So.
Okay, so someone's on board. You're pretty much feel like you can get a job in New England that easy. That definitely sounded, the end of that sounded like a company line. Not saying that's theirs. But to me, it's like much ado about nothing. We've been here before, right?
Right.
Unless you're going to do something to them, I truly don't care. It's kind of business as usual to me, right? The Patriots, they're going to do Patriots things. It's one of those moments we're talking, joking around, before the show.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's fair or not, me personally, like, you say anything with the Patriots and videotape it, I'm just like, okay, they did it. Cool. Let's move on.
Right.
I saw the statement and I laughed that there was a statement. Because I don't even feel like there was that much traction on it, right?
Right.
It's just kind of like, oh, the Patriots got caught taping something. Cool. Like, the first time, it was huge.
Yeah.
This time,
that was the thing.
Okay. But that's where we're at. All right. On to number 2. Again, these are the rapid fire questions Cardell starting are his starter questions for us. Adam Silver denied the Houston Rockets protest of their 133 double overtime loss to the Spurs last week. A Harden breakaway dunk with 7 minutes and 50 seconds remaining would have given the Rockets a 104-89 lead, whipped through the net and back over the rim before bouncing off, and the refs ruled it a missed dunk and denied Mike D'Antoni's attempt to challenge the call. Silver determined that the Rockets had sufficient time to overcome the error during the remainder of the fourth quarter and 2, not 1, but 2 overtime periods.
This is just silliness of the highest order. Like, one, I saw the Russ explanation of why they didn't allow D'Antoni to challenge. They said the time had lapsed between, when the play happened and when, the coaches is allowed to challenge the call. That's one thing. That's pretty black and white right there. 2, those guys missed, Russ and Harden missed 50 shots between them. And you have the nerve to come here and complain about one call. And as Adam Silver said, they had ample time to recover and win the game. So I mean, this is foolish to me. And then on top of that, you got a guy that's made more free throws career-wise than field goals career-wise, and you have a problem with officiating? Dude, play basketball, man. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's getting to a point where they're doing more crying than playing. And, this is why Harden and the Rockets and D'Antoni get the rap that they get. Because come playoff time, like, there isn't going to be any room for these excuses. So, I mean, I can't believe they even had the audacity or could even muster up the courage to complain about this and take it to that extent where they're talking about replaying the final 7.5 minutes or whatever it was. Like, get out of here, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because the most important part of that, the most important thing to me, because I remember I was flipping through games that night.
Mm-hmm.
You were almost up 20. A missed dunk at that point is not the reason that you lost that game. You were up, I want to say 15 at that point. You were up 15 at that point. How does one go about losing said lead? That's on you. That's completely on you. And then the worst part, it went to overtime. So you had the end of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
There was 7 minutes and 50 seconds left. So you gave up a double-digit lead. You had an overtime period. You couldn't end the game there. You had a second extra period. You still couldn't end the game. The last thing in the world in my eyes is that missed dunk being the reason.
Man.
And as you said, they already get a bad rap, as is the Rockets do. At some point, man, like, the answer is defense, okay? For everything that ails you, talking about the Rockets over the past few years, the answer is on the other end of the floor. Again, with 7 minutes and 50 seconds left, you were up 104 to 89. 104 to 89. All right, so we're going to move on. LSU quarterback Joe Burrow, Oklahoma quarterback Jalen Hurts, Ohio State's Justin Field, and also Ohio State, the only non-quarterback here, defensive end Chase Young were named the 4th Heisman Trophy finalists. Who do you think should win it?
My heart wants to go with Jalen Hurts, but common sense is going to have to be Joe Burrow. I mean, he started the season, he wasn't high on anybody's Heisman radar, but he tore the SEC a new one. Had 4,700 yards, 48 touchdowns. He performed at a high level the whole season. The SEC championship, he dominated Georgia. I think he had 4 touchdowns that game. And basically to show up that way in that heralded division in college football pretty much locks you in as the Heisman winner, especially from the quarterback position. Hurts, he had a phenomenal season. He put the ball in the end zone 50 times through the air and on the ground. And especially with him going to Oklahoma under the situations he did, transferring from Alabama. So he's deserving as well, but I just don't think he put together a good enough season to overcome what Joe Burrow did. And I love the fact that they're going to play each other in the first round of the college football playoff, because if one of them wins and then that Heisman Trophy winner loses the game, it's going to start this whole stupid debate about, did they make the right choice, which I love because that game has no bearing on, Heisman Trophy candidacy or what have you. The other two, the Ohio State guys, Fields had a great season as well. He put the ball in the end zone 50 times. They had the number one offense in college football. Chase Young was just a monumental disruptor on the other side of the field. Clearly the best defensive player in the nation this year.
Yep.
But it's hard to win the Heisman from a defensive position. It's mostly tailor-made for the glory guys. Your receivers, your quarterbacks, and your running backs or what have you. But I think this one's going to go to Burrow just for the body work he put together this year.
All three quarterbacks have really good years.
Mm-hmm.
And no disrespect to Chase Young, I'm just going to have to take you out of it just because, as you pointed out, unfairly or not, you have to go nuts. It's one thing, like, I almost feel like sometimes they throw a defensive player in there if they do really good just to be like, hey, look, we didn't choose 4 quarterbacks or 4 skill position players, right? And not to knock Chase Young in the least bit. This isn't set up for you to win, brother.
Yeah,
this isn't
all.
about you. You just mentioned several of these guys with 50 touchdowns. Whether it be all through the air, on the ground, and what have you. All three quarterbacks are very talented. But Joe Burrow did it in the toughest conference. All right, I think we all know what it is. I felt like it was done. Alabama game.
Yeah,
we were done there, right?
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I feel like everybody knew what it was. And this is not an indictment on Hurts, Fields, Young.
Absolutely not.
But you go in there, you slay the dragon, you get the job done. It is what it is. And they handled business all year. Kudos to him for that. If you're Ohio State, you got to feel pretty good, right?
Right.
Haskins last year, Burrow was there, right? At one point in time, somebody's doing something right.
Yeah.
Even if they don't stay, you still got to be proud. Like from a recruiting standpoint, definitely looks like it. This isn't a bad situation for you at all. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's Joe Burrow. I'd be very surprised if it went to Jalen Hurts. I think. Which game was it that Oklahoma lost? I think that one. I think that's kind of what really hurt Oklahoma. I don't remember exactly what game.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
So now I gotta go look. I remember Oklahoma lost this year, and as soon as they lost, I was like, it's pretty much it for you, sir.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
And also to that point, think LSU.
12-1. The one loss. I'm sorry to cut you off.
You good.
The one loss was to Kansas State. Like you can't.
Oh
lose
yeah, right, yeah.
That's the thing. You can't lose to Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And LSU, I think they had the toughest schedule in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So for Burrow to come out and perform that way against, the best collection of competition than anybody else in the nation, come on, like what more do you want the guy to do? At that point, it becomes a little laughable if he doesn't win.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because then you gotta question what the motive is behind the vote, and really kind of dig into the credibility of that process. If somebody comes out and just really blows away the competition like that, then you got to give that guy's props.
They've had, for real, like they had 2 close games this year. They had Alabama, and they had at Texas, at Alabama. Both wins, margin of victory, Alabama 46-41, Texas 45-38. That's the closest. And there's several 50 burgers on that page.
Several.
See 60 a couple times as well. So they handle business. All right, to a topic a little bit closer to home. Georgetown head coach Patrick Ewing on his radio show, Center Court with Patrick Ewing, said he was very disappointed to see the Knicks fire David Fizdale. Very disappointed. I think Fizdale is an outstanding coach. Thoughts on the Knicks letting Fizdale go?
I knew this was going to happen when they hired him. Mm-hmm. That's the Knicks way. Since 2010, I think they have more coaches than first round draft picks. That's just a dumpster fire of an organization. Everybody knows it. I kind of felt I felt bad for Fizdale when he went there because he was one of the guys that was talked about as, deserving his shot. He had a good reputation around the league, and he was with Memphis when they had their little run with we
had a lot of
Mike Conley, Tony Allen, Gasol, and those guys. So it's sad to see somebody go through the ranks, put their work in, get their hands dirty, and when they finally get their shot to run their own shop, it's in a position like with the one he got with the Knicks, and Steve Kerr kind of poked some fun at the situation, saying because if anybody remembers, those were his choices.
Yep.
Take the Knicks job or the Golden State job. I think everybody knows he made the right choice. But he's like, that would have been me, 3 years ago if I had taken the job. And he's right, because they're just not running things well over there. And whoever fills that seat next, I don't know why they would want to expect anything different as long as Dolan's in charge. I know he's kind of taken or tried to take a step back recently and letting other guys make those personnel decisions, but he's created a culture there that is not conducive to success. And I agree with Pat. Fizdale, I don't think he got a fair shake.
Nah, I don't think there's any other position to take on this, unless you just don't like Fizdale or you're doomed and have been sentenced to being a lifelong Knicks fan. I apologize that I had that very bad habit early in my life. I kicked it. You can too.
12-step program.
Man, it was a 1-step program. I had enough. Mike D'Antoni years.
Oh man.
That's when I left. That was it for me. Knicks fan all my life. I don't have to do this anymore. I literally was just like, I'm good off this. I looked around, I was like, Kemba's in Charlotte. Be a Charlotte fan, right? But Kemba left Charlotte, and I just watch the NBA now. And it's refreshing. It's not stressful. Because what do you want a coach to do with the type of, like, how this roster's constructed, right?
Right.
Remember during free agency, everyone was making fun of them for having 19 million forwards? And none of them are like the elite wing type either, right?
Yeah, right.
What do you want someone to do with this? It's a tough situation. You mentioned the front office. And that's the other thing I'm interested in too, is who wants this job, right? Because it is literally one of those situations where Fizdale took the job. You talk about Kerr rejecting it because you're almost set up to fail. Mm-hmm. How can you ensure if I take this job, like if I'm a candidate and I'm a head coaching candidate, I'm looking for jobs or whatever, or the Knicks reach out, like how do I ensure that front office isn't going to set me up for failure and then blame it on me on the way out?
Right.
Like give me a bunch of square pegs that don't fit into the 17 round holes I have, and then be upset with me for not making something work, because that's essentially where I feel we're at. Like you got so many forwards to the point where how do you expect the young kids to grow? It's stocked with the lone like big on the roster is Mitchell Robinson.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's it.
And then you just got Julius Randle 10 times.
Yeah, you have several different versions of not stretch fours, like not complete stretch fours.
Yeah.
You have Bobby Portis, who might be the stretch he is, but he's also not a 5, right? You have Julius Randle at 6'8", 250, a whole bear of a forward to deal with. But you don't want him playing the 5 either. And you're also not going to put him at the 3. Right? So let's move down a little bit. You got Marcus Morris. Mm-hmm. He might be the one guy where you can swing to a couple different places.
Yeah.
Cool. Taj Gibson, there's not a whole lot of versatility there at all. What do you want him to do with this? I'm at a loss for what anyone's supposed to do with this, but I digress. I agree with both you and Pat, clearly.
And I mean, I get it. Like, you got to do something when you're losing, but I mean, just at some point it's got to start to make sense. You can't give somebody nothing to work with, mm-hmm. and then, like you said, blame them when they can't gain any momentum or do anything positive. Like anybody at any job will want their employer to give them,
Give me all the tools for my job.
suitable tools and
Exactly.
good resources,
Right.
and so on and so forth. And then at that point, if I fail, then yeah, it's on me. But if you're not even providing me with the bare minimum, then you're gonna be looking at me, fans, and I'm gonna be looking right back at you. This is what you gave me to work with, So it is what it is. Fizdale's he's not tripping. He's getting paid $15 million to sit this one out. So, hope he gets another shot. But it's kind of off topic, but on topic. It's another black head coach that gets thrown into a sucky situation.
A very jacked up situation, because the Knicks, from an organizational standpoint, have been a mess since the 90s.
Yeah,
We're close to 2020.
it's not Fizdale's fault.
Nah.
We got almost 20 years of evidence.
Or even
here.
earlier the past couple weeks, we were talking about Mike Loxley's first year at Maryland, right?
Mhm.
How can you judge him when it's hard to evaluate a coach when he didn't have all his pieces or whatever, right?
Right.
It's a little bit different in college because you get to recruit or whatnot. But
Mhm.
if you're not locked up with your front office, as a coach or as an organization, period, it's hard to. Y'all aren't seeing things necessarily the same way.
Right.
So you got someone like, I'm picking all the recipes. I'm like, hey, you cook this, this, and this with what I gave you. I didn't give you anything to cook the dishes I told you that that I'm asking.
Right.
I didn't give you anything. I probably gave you the least helpful items, right? And it told you to make a gourmet meal. And I spent like $12 on the recipes.
Man.
So we're not going to get there, are we? All right, so the last question we had, provided by Cardell. The Grizzlies suspend former 4th overall pick Josh Jackson one game for missing a meeting with the Memphis Hustle of the G League. Jackson is averaging 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists per game on 43% shooting from deep and 55 on twos. The 22-year-old, I can't believe he's only 22, man, will be an unrestricted free agent next summer. What do you think of that predicted? What do you think of his current situation?
I think I agree with the suspension. I think in the position he's in, he needs to make sure, he's doing everything he can to get to where he wants to be. I think he was a number 4 pick, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure he didn't expect to be in the G League at this point. What people don't realize is when you're picked that high and you end up in the G League, it's already a stigma about you. Something didn't work out. You don't get picked top 5 and get relegated to the minors, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So he's already got to work his way out of a hole because it's like, oh, he's not what we thought he would be, and he's trying to work his way back. So while you're doing that, you can't have any missteps. He's still a young guy. 22 years old, but got to grow up, got to be a professional, got to be mature. Show up to the meeting if there's a meeting. It doesn't get any more black and white than that.
Nah, it's just not that difficult.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just not that difficult. In the least bit, I don't really have much to add to that. The biggest thing for me is you're gonna get a couple more chances because you're talented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make the most of them. You can't miss meetings. Like, you're at a place. Literally, you're in the G League.
Right.
At this point, you should understand how serious your current situation is within the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the G League because you're on a stacked team and there's no room for you. It's Memphis's G League team.
Yeah, like, dude, you do what you have to do to get where you want to be.
And it's that simple. But again, the talent's there. Someone will take a chance in free agency next year, because he's 22 years old. And I mean, again, we saw something earlier, not earlier this year, but in free agency this past year. Sometimes with those types of rookies end up in different situations or anything like that. It might be. It might end up being a blessing where he might end up in a better situation in the long haul because he's 22 on, like, you can get him on a nothing deal. Right. Like, literally for the nothing if you're a contending team, right? All right, Cardell looking out for us from afar with a rapid fire question. Man, you on it. You are on it, sir. Why are basketball fans only giving the Lakers credit for their record instead of the Milwaukee Bucks? Why is no one talking about said Milwaukee Bucks? Is the question here. So before you answer here, that's what we're here to talk about, all right? So the Lakers, well deserved to be discussed. They're on a 4-game win streak, 9-1 in their last 10, 21-3. Should be applauded for their current record. The Milwaukee Bucks, I raised you that 4-game win streak, 15-game win streak. 10-0 in their last 10 because they won 15 straight. They're also 21-3. The floor is yours, sir.
You know,
Hey,
people want to. The Lakers are playing well. Let's start there. I don't want to take anything away from what they're doing so far this season, but you know, for the last 9 years, I've been hearing from a certain subset of NBA cult-like fans that the regular season doesn't matter.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, so why are you beating your chest 24 games into a season?
Because it's been a while.
Yeah. So okay. So we got a meshing of two rabid fan bases here.
Yeah.
Like we got the people who like to drink Brognac. Then we got Laker Nation. So you know that coming together is just creates a melting pot of.
Okay, like not to jump in, but like my biggest beef is even without those, right? Because those two things are a given, right? Outside of that, from a media standpoint, it upsets me deeply, not me deeply, that we're not talking about Milwaukee like enough. It's absurd.
Right.
There's 2 21-3 win teams in the league. 2. Should only just mention 1. All right. The NFL's in a place where we're getting towards the end of the regular season. There's multiple 10-win teams.
Right.
There's a couple of 11-win teams.
And they're all getting love.
I won't go that far, but they're all acknowledged.
Right. Yeah.
At least at the very least, if it's not the same level of coverage and love, they're acknowledged. You don't bring up one without bringing up the other.
Exactly.
You might not spend all your time on all of them. You know, give them equal love, but you acknowledge them. We're in a place with the NBA, at least this season, it truly feels like no one just cares what's happening in Milwaukee, and it's absurd. If we could take the time to give the Lakers credit, and there's nothing wrong, we acknowledge their hot start to the season. It is great that they're this ahead in terms of where they're at. You can't get mad at anybody for beating the teams that's in front of them. Right? You're supposed to take care of business right now. You're a good team. You feel like you're a championship contender. You should be taking care of business against lesser than teams.
Absolutely.
Cool. This is also time for you to mesh. Those are all positive things we can take from that, right? There's nothing wrong with those things. But to only mention one team and not the other, that's where I'm coming from. If we're gonna take time to mention the Lakers, you mention Milwaukee. If you mention Milwaukee, you mention the Lakers. I feel like honestly, if we're being what we should be is objective and whatnot, you shouldn't mention one without the other. Correct?
Right.
And that's the part where we're at. AD's having a phenomenal year. There's nothing wrong with that in the least bit. I mean, a phenomenal year. But if we can mention AD and LeBron and what they're doing, please tell me how we're going to miss out on 31 points, 13 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1 block, and 1 steal per game.
It's a lot to disregard.
That's all I'm saying. That's a whole lot to just throw by the wayside. And again, this is not an indictment on Bron or AD saying they're not doing what they're doing. They're handling business. Kudos to them. They're a good match. It has been fun watching them. As for the stuff that comes with, as you said, some of the folks on Brognac, gotta block that out. But kudos to them for their start. You know, like there are a lot of positives there. But Milwaukee is also there's 2 teams that won 21 games. Talk about them both. That's all anybody is literally asking here. Talking about them both. But before we get out of here, real quick, just because I'm super petty, and to stay online to piggyback off this thing that Cardell's talking about people not talking about things, right? So, Tom Brady let's talk about it. I feel like he's wearing the highest caliber, the most finest Teflon ever created right now. And I'm trying to understand why. And we've heard all throughout his career, we give him credit for being in the kitchen, kicking up some stuff with not exactly high profile perimeter players on high profile players on outside. That's it. Struggle bus. Struggle bus. Struggle bus. All right? And no one wants to say anything, and it bothers me deeply. So, 3,400 yards with 34, let me give him all his credit, 34-37.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing the ball. There's nothing wrong with that. Handling his business, right? 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Cool. My beef with this, sir. Why is no one talking about this?
I mean,
19-7 as much as they throw the ball. And we're literally taking the time to get mad at every skill position player not named Julian Edelman that plays in New England.
I don't really feel a way about this either way.
That's fair.
Like, I mean, he's obviously at the twilight of his career.
But but don't you feel like it's okay to acknowledge that?
Absolutely.
To say it out loud.
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess that's where I'm at with it. Is what's wrong with just saying it? Like it's a fact. That's where we're at.
He's struggling.
A struggle bus
He's struggling
year for Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Is it officially the end? I don't know. I'm not in control of this. I'm simply saying struggle bus. And we've got we're we like week 15. We approaching week 15. And nobody wants to say it out loud?
Like, and I think it would actually be a good thing to bring this up, especially since the fact that the 3 teams he lost to have QBs that are under 25. It's a talking point. But
that's all I'm saying, man. So
I don't know, man.
One of the very first times, right? He's not in the top 5 in touchdown passes as of late. He's yet to get 20. As of right now, he is 13th.
And I mean, he doesn't have the weapons. Okay, fine, but like you said, it can at least be discussed. Like this seems like it's taboo for some reason.
Okay, so let me frame it this way: if Dak Prescott, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 60% completion percentage, we talking about it or not?
I mean, isn't Dak like top 3 in passing, and we're talking about him anyway? So,
but I'm just saying,
we'd be talking about.
No, I'm talking about like as an issue, we'd be talking.
Right?
About,
yeah, absolutely.
Like as an issue,
absolutely.
We'd be like, "What's wrong with you, sir?"
He's being talked about right now.
And that's the thing; he's doing good, but we talk about other players where they fall off, right? Just talk about it. That's all I'm asking.
Drew Brees.
He went off the other day, so everybody's cool off Drew right now, okay? Even Drew got some Teflon of his own that was done through performance. We gonna chill off Drew for like a whole week. My man said, I put up 46.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. Leave me alone. I put up 46. I did my part. I did my job. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me is again, nothing against Tom Brady. He's just all for the games, but it's just like, can we talk about it? We talk about everybody else. We talk about other people when they're struggling, even when they're not.
Right. Yeah.
Like we make up things. We make up narrative. It don't have to about us, literally us, but it's media folk. Make up all these wonderful things where the numbers say otherwise. But it's fun to talk about. Just so fun. And Cardell had another question, man, but we're not about to do that. That's like another 15 minutes. He talked about that tweet with the Shaq and Kobe, AD and Bron.
Oh, man.
And we're not doing that. We just going to close out. We're going to ask all y'all to have a good evening. Get over to finestbag.com. I'm on sports.com. You follow us on social media. Got some big things coming. Got a couple roundtables this week. This new thing in 2020 called The Grind. That should be fun. And then, Focus TV, man, we getting closer to 2020. Got some things up our sleeve here at Studio 202, DC TV. Thank you guys all for your continued support. We'll see you guys next week.
All right.